That boy is Benny Hanna.
Yo, I see y'all showing mad love already. Yo, it's about to get cracking in this joint. Yo, I want you guys, we got about a minute left before we get started. Yo, I want you to share. Let me see those numbers go up. Yo, tell your mama, daddy, everybody, sister, brother, Pookie and them that it's time. Go get Bobby, Billy, go get Josue, go get Jesus, go get them all. Come on.
What about Adonis? What about Elijah Wan?
The I Am Man podcast is produced by men for men. We are here to support men through their individual journeys to authentic and holistic manhood. We believe men play an essential role in securing the future of generations and deserve to be seen and heard. Our podcast is a safe space where men from all walks of life can come and process through life's challenges to become the best versions of themselves.
Yo, what's good, family? What's up? We are in here today. Yo, listen, this is your boy, Big Brother Rob, and I'm so excited that we are continuing this conversation, our series on relationships and situationships. Yo, this has been crazy. This is actually part 2 of our conversation about divorce, surviving divorce from a male perspective. Yo, last week it was crazy. It was bananas, and you guys wanted more, so we're back. So I'm not going to prolong the time, but listen, this is what I want you to do. I want you to share. I want you to give us some hearts. I want you to go get everybody, mama, daddy. I said Josue. I want you to go get Billy. I want you to go get Gene. I want you to get your mama, your daddy. Everybody, get them in this room. It's going down. It's going to be unfiltered and it's going to be very raw. It's going to be very raw. So I'm excited about who we have joining me. So I'm going to invite these brothers on in the room. Yo, what's up, brothers? How you guys doing?
Good.
Doing good. Man.
What's up?
Monday.
Good. Yo, so everybody, let me just give you a quick recap. We're talking about relationships and situationships. Somebody hashtag in the chat for me situationships. Yo, we've been talking about relationships. We've been talking about situationships, specifically from the male perspective. I personally think that this is necessary because we always hear about women. He broke my heart, or he's good for nothing, or he did this. And you see all these movies, the media, the women, all their voice always gets heard, but nobody ever really talks about the man's perspective about being in a situationship or in this particular instance, experiencing and surviving divorce. So, yo, we got a whole bunch of real brothers here that's joining us on this live and on this podcast talking about their lived experiences with divorce and surviving it. And yo, last week we had Tommy join us. Nino hopefully got his stuff together this week. I think your mic work. You good?
I think so.
Okay, good. You over there looking like a solo today, but you got it, man. So we got Nino, we got Brandon, and we got Joe. So I'm excited, man. I want to know, kind of, did you guys get any responses from people after last week's show?
Yes. Make some very long story short. Yes.
Right.
Joe looked like he still got a lot to say. So, Joe, he got that look. So we left off in a very interesting place, and we left off asking the questions: are you friends with your ex? And Joe said, "What'd you say, Joe?"
Emphatic, adamant. No, I'm sorry. No.
Hell no, I'm not. Hell no. And I want to know, Joe, why are you not friends with your ex?
So, define friend. I have a lot of friends, and I have a definition for friend. Friend is somebody that I have an intimate relationship with, somebody I admire, and somebody that I trust. If you don't fit those qualifications, we can't be friends. And that's why I can't be friends, because of the trust factor. Like you already said, a lot of women, they get to tell all the stuff they've gone through as if men aren't going through. So in particularly, and I know a lot of brothers can relate to this, when your children being kept away from you, when you got to spend thousands of dollars on a lawyer and just to see your kids and things like that. But in particular, let me just give you this. In particular, so we went in on the child support. And I've learned that when we start talking about child support, we're not all talking about the same thing. And I'm not talking about the difference between my money and Puff Daddy's money. That's not what I'm talking about. Okay. I'm talking about, this is a very oppressive system. So I got divorced in 2008, not knowing that my ex had put out a child support order in 2006 while we were still living together. Okay. So that started in 2006. Then my divorce child support order started in 2008. Now I'm paying about $1,500. It's not about that money. You got to pay child support, is what it is, as long as my kids have been taken care of. But I didn't know that the Illinois Health and Family Services, they're calculating from 2006 while I'm paying my divorce child support. So their kids still counting. So 10 years pass. I'm like, hey, one of my kids become an adult. I'm like, hey, I want more parenting time, and I want to cut down on my child support. Cool. I go in there, they're like, you're right, Mr. McNeil. You've overpaid $10,000 in your child support, and we're going to give you more time. I'm like, yay. So she says during the court, how does I owe him 10 when he owes me 50? I'm like, what are you talking about? My lawyer's like, what is she talking about? So she doesn't expound on it. A couple of days later pass. I'm coming from Bible study. I got about $8,000 in the bank because me and my wife are about to buy a house. All right, this is 2016. I go to get something. They say, hey, your card's declined. My card declined, whatever. I call, they like, your bank account is wiped out, all zeros. All zeros. I go to find out, they say child support took your money. How? I'm up 10,000. I'm up 10,000. How does child support take my money? I find out this order that she put in, they say you owe 50,000. I said, how is that? How in the world I owe 50 when I overpaid 10? So now I still got my lawyer. We still I got my lawyer. We go over there. We leave the domestic divorce court. We go over to across the street, the Illinois Health and Child Family Services. I got pay stubs, 10 years. I got a judgment saying that she owes me $10,000. I'm like, what are we talking about? She's like, well, according to this, you owe us $2,700 in real money and another $47,000 in back pay and interest. And I've been paying that ever since.
Yeah, that wouldn't be a friend of mine either.
I'm about 25,000 in.
He ain't even moved yet. His mouth's still open.
And guys, there's a lot of brothers going through this. I have a best friend whose son has been living with him since 13. He owes back child support. His son is grown now. He's been living with him in his house.
I'll say this. I'll say this for the young people that are watching. You get yourself in a situation. There's a fellow that I know that got with a girl. She was expecting a baby. Was not his kid. Never claimed it to be his kid. Never signed adoption paperwork on the kid. Married to her for about 8-9 years. What happens next? She runs off. They divorce. Was not his fault. She says, look, the kid's coming with me. You owe child support. He says, it's not my kid. They go to court. Court says, oh, you've been taking care of the kid for the last 8 years. Yes, sir, but it's not my kid. We understand that. He's paying child support every month, and he gets every other weekend. So keep in mind whenever you decide to hang out with some chick that ain't your wife.
Listen, I'm gonna talk real. Listen, my mama used to say this. She said, you better have a hat for your soldier. So listen, y'all, listen. So that is
how you do that in marriage. Don't marry. This is not my girl. It's my wife.
Oh, yeah, that's your wife.
That's my wife. I think I'm doing stuff right.
Man, I forgot.
He about to start crying. Y'all, if we pass an offer to play around right now, y'all know who it's for, okay?
It's 100 people in here tonight that can give 20.
He's already nodding yes. He ain't even turning it down. He just come on somebody.
My wife watches. She definitely say yes. We'll take it.
Dude, so I want to talk about that too, because I've noticed, right? So when I've seen from my experience that when women mess up, or when women are the ones who are trifling, I'll say it like that, and they leave, why I've noticed that they really don't want to see their men or their exes happy in a relationship with another person. Why? Like I've seen where they've accessed bank accounts, where they've started rumors, where they're hacking into their ex's stuff. Like Nino's laughing because we go in there today. We are going. I've seen where women have done some crazy stuff after they gotten out of the relationship. So why isn't the divorce enough? And Nino, can you talk about this a little bit more?
Man, well, look, I'm glad my finances didn't get touched. They didn't get tampered with. No, social medias were hacked into, and nothing.
Rumors too. We got to talk about
rumors.
Every one of y'all said they thought y'all was gay. So that was so it's either rumors, they touch your money, they touch your car, or you gay. One of the two. So whether you're like, I need y'all to talk on this, bro.
So yeah, no, definitely. I had a lot of rumors being talked about, where they were coming from. I'm not gonna point fingers, what I'm saying, but there was definitely like, apparently I was an abuser, what I'm saying. Apparently I was, physically and emotionally, I guess, putting it on in my marriage at the time, things like that. And I'm glad that I have close enough friends to know that that's not true, right? But I just thought about the people who didn't know me, like those who didn't know me closely. But I'm in a church community, you know what I'm saying? So you got all these people within my network, that maybe see me, however many times, and they're looking at me with the image of what they've heard or been told, and so that was a little interesting. But I mean, like I said, I'm so glad. For me, what mattered to me most was that I had friends who were able to reach out to me and like, hey, this is what I've been told, or this is what I heard, and I know it's not to be true, but just so you know. So I can definitely attest to rumors being spread out, and I mean, not fun,
Rumors were like you was beating her tail.
Yeah.
I was like, bro, ain't nobody believe that. Like we believe it was the other way around. Did she ever hit you, bro? Did she ever hit you?
Nah, man. Nah.
This is a safe place, man.
Right.
And that's it. You only on the podcast. It's good. Yo, so listen, we talked about divorce, but what has what has life after divorce looked like? So I know that some of you, Brandon and Joe, you guys have gotten remarried. How has your divorce impacted your marriage, Brandon? Because I know, Joe, your money is just jacked for a minute, but Brandon, how has your divorce impacted your marriage?
I think realistically, for the one thing, like with me, I married a girl who was 9 years younger than me. First of all, it was not an accident. It was on purpose. Thank you, Jesus. Okay. But I married a girl 9 years younger than me. She'd never been married, didn't have kids. So she's marrying a guy who has 2 kids already. And she's dealing with an ex-wife that she's never met before. She don't know nothing about. She married some baggage. So I think no matter who you are, if you marry into that situation or if somebody gets into a relationship with that situation, they are automatically picking up baggage. And what comes with baggage is a lot of stress automatically. And, if you look at divorce rates from the first, which I think is like 54%, by the time you get to the third right now, I believe it's 71%. And I think the reason being is because of the baggage that you pick up. And when you marry somebody, especially a young girl who ain't got no kids, very little life experience when it comes to this stuff, you've already been there and done that, man, she's walking in blind, completely, utterly blind. Now, I can say this because I'm actually sitting at her daddy's house right now. I'm in Dallas, Texas. And her dad called my dad and said, hey, how can we they don't need to be together. My dad said, my man, he left home at 17. Good luck. But you signed up for a lot of things, and families automatically, people that say they don't care what the situation is. You divorced? Oh, I don't want you around. You don't need to be with my girl. You know what I'm saying? You're trying to make yourself bigger and better, trying to get somebody that's going to be a part of what you feel God's called your life to. And man, stress, it creates a lot of stress. A lot of things kids, again, young people, you don't think about. There's a lot of stuff that you bring into a relationship you never expected.
Okay, well, I'm curious to know this too, and we're about to go a little. So if you got kids in the room, you're listening, you might want to tune out for a minute. But listen, I want to know, because after you're married, right, you are used to having a sexual relationship with your significant other. And I'm interested because Tommy, you were married for 10 years. Yeah. So I mean, you had a pair of thighs and legs next to you for 10 years. What is it like now being single?
Thighs and legs.
Hey,
thighs and legs, breasts and wings, glory.
Hey, it's rough. I mean, I wouldn't really. Never mind.
No,
never mind.
Let's just say that.
Ain't no. Let's just say. What were you gonna say? Say it with your chest.
You just said it was a safe space. Let's get it.
Right.
In my marriage, sex wasn't really a thing like that or whatever. So it kind of prepared me for this.
Bless him, Lord.
But it's tough, man. Definitely going from even if you wasn't really having sex like that, just being able to have sex when you want it to like now is like, God, dog, man. It was like I was cool like the first month or so, like, oh man, I'm good. And then when them sheets start getting cold. Start getting late at night. I'm laying up in a king size bed. Ain't nothing next to me but a pillow. it was rough.
Outside girl.
So I mean, I'm still it's still a challenge now. I mean, I'm still, working through those struggles now, as a single man or whatever. But it's definitely a challenge, something that you definitely have to work on discipline with, number one, because it's like, man, you so used to this, and then now you not getting this. Hey,
Go ahead. Don't get quiet on me now, brother. I'm like, yo, Nino, what's up? Because you're not married either.
Well,
He's
unlike Tommy, my struggle wasn't the fact that it was no longer a freedom to have. It was the fact that it's before me more often than not, which is the struggle for me. On that note, and honestly, earlier on, coming out of the divorce, it was I had to like convince myself that I was good enough, man, and that included the bedroom, man. And so I did become very promiscuous, man. Just to convince myself I was good. You know what I'm saying? And not to say that was anything that was being said, but it was just, that was where my battle came into play. I walked out thinking like, damn, what is it? And so a part of me felt like that could have been the case, because the reality was like, not towards the latter end, but we had the struggle of like that lack of intimacy. We had kids at the house, and they weren't the most, respective space. They're young, they want the attention. So it's like, if they up and about, well, we can't just go out and about and do what we want to do either, And then so it's like, well, by the time we had the opportunity, well, I'm tired. I want to go to work. I got to go to work in the next couple hours. I'm calculating time. Terrible, man. But so when I'm stepping up out of my my marriage, and that's where my struggle was. It wasn't until I finally like had this understanding, like that's not the case, or when I finally just understood my own value, and it had nothing to do with intimacy, that was so much easier to fight off, But in the beginning, nah.
Yeah, hey, yo, that's real talk right there, man. Because and I had to act like I was literally like, and it was to the point where it wasn't like I was doing this for like pleasure. It was that like, man, like, am I the man? But like after a while, like, okay, yeah, I got it. Let me stop before I get, what I'm saying, get wrapped up in something. And even to this point, like now, like I just started realizing certain like habits that I formed towards the end of my marriage that I still like different routines that I do. That's like, now I sleep on my couch a lot. Like I've been divorced. I haven't been with my wife since 2009, early 2019. And in that time period, for like a 6-month span, I wasn't sleeping in the room because I didn't want to go in there. I wanted to sleep on the couch. So like being in my apartment for almost 1.5 years now, I probably slept in my room like 5 times. Like I've developed like this comfort on the couch, and it's a psychological thing that I've just realized is just something that I formed or whatever. So, like I said, yeah, going from that to that, like it affects you, and it has its things with you.
I think the common thread between what everybody's saying here too, and I can definitely speak up for myself, is that's dealing with shame. Because how do we process shame? And another thing with guys, take the number one thing. If you hurt a man's pride, like I said before, you hurt a man's pride, you hurt the thing most precious to him. And it's a pride thing and it's a shame thing. I didn't go to church whenever we went through the entire divorce. And it was crazy because I actually ended up becoming the person that I hated in her.
Mm-hmm.
The things that I didn't like about her that she did that ruined our marriage. I was no longer married. We're divorced. But really and truthfully, I became what she was.
Mm.
So I started acting the same way she did. And then I think in time, I realized, and going back to the communication, from lack of communication, she felt a lack of intimacy. She felt a lack of connectivity with me as her husband. Well, what did I do? I reacted the same way she did. The only difference was I wasn't married. So I ended up creating for myself an own mess. And I'll be honest with y'all. And I mean, look, again, I pastor a church, and there's people here watching, but I'm extremely realistic at our church. It wasn't until, again, without God, it wasn't until a man drove up in my front yard who was this girl's father and put all her stuff and said, she going to stay here. You're going to take care of her. And I said, whoa, 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 whoa. That's not what I'm here for, you know? And all of a sudden I started realizing, hang on, I'm becoming what I hate because of shame. And I think that's what we do.
Yeah.
So how does shame play out, not just in a divorced man's life, in a man's life in general? How does that practically look?
A lot of
I think
a lot of isolation, a lot of like just drawn away from certain things. I know for me, when I got my divorce, like I shut everything down. Like I stopped, doing my music. I stopped, serving in church. I shut everything down because I felt shamed, and it was like and nobody was making me feel that way, but it was how I felt on the inside, and I was projecting that around to everybody that I saw. When I would walk in a room, I just felt like everyone saw divorce on me. And like I said, like I'm not serving at my church. I'm not doing this, and I was just drifting further and further away from who I really was. Like I wasn't the funny. Like every time you see Tommy's smiling. Tommy got a joke. Tommy's being funny. I wasn't that guy no more. And it wasn't until I realized, where I looked back and realized how far away from who I was, how far away from that I was. I had to okay, I gotta reel this back in. Like I'm shutting all of these things down because of shame. I'm feeling bad. I'm feeling guilty. And it really took a community of people to really show me yo, we don't care nothing about you got a divorce. We get it. It happens. What are we going to do now? Let's move forward. So.
Wow. And that's actually a good segue, because we talked about a lot of the woes of divorce and some of the challenges that you've gone through. But part of this conversation and the topic is life after divorce. And so I wanted to invite all of you brothers on here because I believe that you guys have decided to live after divorce. You've decided to say, hey, I went through this. It hurt. It was painful, but this is not the sum total of who I am, and that there's a life after this. So, man, I really would like Brandon, if you could speak to how did you care for yourself, and how did you get past, and how are you getting past being labeled as a divorcee?
So again, I'm going to throw a little caveat in here because I'm a preacher. I like stories, and there was one story in the Bible, honestly, that very specifically helped me. One very specific thing that helped me. If you read in 2 Kings, the 4th chapter, it talks about the lady who had the son that was sick, and she was a preacher's wife, right? So we're going to put this in current day terms and not act like it's a Bible story. Basically, there's a lady here. She has sons that are about to be taken because she's in debt, right?
Right.
She goes to the prophet Elisha. She says, look, they're about to come take my kids. He looks at her. He knows that she's in need, and he asks 2 questions back to back. First of all, he says, how can I help you? And he does not pause. He does not break. The next question he asks after how can I help you is what's in your house? And so this man of God has showed up in her life wanting to help her, to do something for her, but he did not pause between the two. Whenever I realized what Elisha was asking for, he was looking for stability. He says, I get it, but generally what can fix you is within reach. Now, for me, it was a history and a past that I had with a relationship with God. The problem is I had likened my past relationship with people to my relationship with God. Okay, so if other people can walk away from me, I understand if God doesn't love me anymore because I done jacked my life up. If other people gave up on me, I understand why God gave up on me. But whenever I realized, and you look throughout the entire story of the Bible, I mean, you got a man climbing a tree to look for Jesus. It was a tree that was in front of him. You got somebody touching the hem of a garment that was within reach. Throughout the entire Bible, everything that happened was in reach. And all of a sudden I realized you've got the ability to have stability, but you've got to grab what's within reach. And I started reaching out to the people that were within reach of me. And most back then, it wasn't nobody in church. I mean, really and truthfully, I thought that the whole living for God thing was gone. So I started grabbing people. My dad, Talk to somebody who was divorced. Hey, help me out. But I needed stability in my life. It was to recreate stability was what I needed. That was, and it's still to this day. I'm going to say this too. Stability is number one. Accountability. Got to be accountable to somebody.
So when you say, can you speak to stability a little bit more? Like when you refer to stability, what are you referring to?
So I looked at the thing, you know, I don't know if I want to, whether I want to use scripture for this or not, but I would ask the question to myself, the fervent prayer of a righteous man availeth much. Okay, I know how to pray with fervency. Like where I come up with a little bishop as a pastor, like I can pray with fervency, but righteousness, ain't know about all that. Like I don't know if I'm really the righteous type, you know. Like I look at my past and I say, how can I be righteous? The righteous fervent prayer of a righteous man availeth much. And then as I read the story and I look at the people in the Bible, you got everybody from King David. Man, these guys, they got bigger problems than what we did. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? We got men of the Bible that murdered people and buried them in the sand, you know, and tried to walk away and act like everything was cool. And so I said, what is stability to me? Stability to me was literally creating a schedule. Now, there's two of us here that's prior military. That's to the point to where, you know, when you're in basic training in the U.S. Army or in the Navy, same thing. It's not a choice whenever they wake you up at 4:15 in the morning. You got to get up. Why? Because you signed up for something. You signed up for something. If not, they're going to take you by your feet and you're going to land on the back of your head. Okay. And so I started doing that to myself. I said, okay, I want out. I got to get, and it wasn't that I wanted out of a relationship. I wanted out of a mentality. I wanted out of where I was at spiritually. And so I started putting myself basically, okay, you need stability. How do you get stability? You get it by making yourself get up. Because I guarantee you, if there's a common thread between all four of us here that's talking, right after all this went down, what happened? Man, you started sleeping in. You don't want to get up. Lay in bed all day. You know what I'm saying? Feeling sorry for yourself. And the old man used to tell me, he said, you want to be successful? Starts with one thing. You got to get up. And so I started getting up, making a schedule for myself. I didn't want to live for God. I wake up in the morning at 3:50 and I'd take between 4 and 7 shots of vodka. That way, when I got up at 5:30 to make myself run, I'd already be tipsy. Okay. Became a stark raving alcoholic. But in the middle of that, on Sundays, when Sunday rolled around, I was drunk by the time 10 o'clock got there. But you know where I was at? By 10:20, because I didn't want nobody shaking my hand on the way into church. I walk and sit down on the back row. Back here, swaying back and forth, sitting on the back row of church. Stability. And I started rebuilding my life piece by piece through accountability, making myself do the things that I knew would make myself better, even when it hurt, even when I didn't want to. I made myself, and I slowly but surely learned, just keep throwing some dirt. There was one shovel of dirt in that hole, and slowly but surely I climbed out of it, and I climbed back to a calling. That's what happened. I didn't know that's where I was going, but that's where I ended up at.
That's good.
That was good. that was real good. Joe, what about you, man?
So for me, it was about rediscovering my identity, rediscovering myself. So my divorce was probably the most traumatic thing I had ever been through. I've been shot at, I've been hit by a car, but when you want to talk about traumatic, all right, my emotions were wrecked, and I think it had a lot to do with I found my identity, my manhood was in my marriage. So now when the divorce came, I lost some of my identity. I lost manhood. I literally had somebody tell me, you're not a man because your wife left. I literally had somebody very close to me tell me that, right? So I'm sitting here now without an identity, not without manhood. I'm thinking, you know what, God, I don't care what you called me to. I don't want it. So what I first had to do was I was very blessed to be in a church that was a very healthy church with people that really loved on me. So I was very, very fortunate to be in this environment where I was really loved on. And I've always been I'm an extrovert. So I'm all about people. So it wasn't for anything to a barrier for me not to be in a relationship with people, because that's just who I am. So first things first was I had to find myself. I had to be loved, man. I needed to be loved on. I need to be loved on for real. You know what I mean? So that was one. I need to be loved on. I think stability, I think what you said, Brandon, I think that's awesome because we all need love, significance, meaning, purpose, right? And I think we get that out of these relationships that we're in, and obviously out of our relationship with God. So that was really important. That accountability piece was so important to me, okay? Because I found myself with people that cared about me and I cared about them, and I needed somebody to hold me accountable to the values that I had, to remind me of who I was. So I'm now finding back my identity. I'm finding back who I am. I'm finding back, you know what? Was I perfect? No, but I didn't deserve this. To really reach back and dig yourself out of this hole to all the things that the enemy is telling you was your fault, because that's what it feels like.
Yeah.
Everything was your fault. You know, your wife leaving, your children, all these things, they're your fault. It's laid at your feet. And to be honest, our culture treats us like that too. What did you do wrong, husband? What did you didn't love your wife right? You wasn't making enough money. You didn't have a big enough house or not. What did you do? So I'm taking all the burden and this blame, and now I'm digging myself out of this hole of depression and anxiety, a lack of identity, and I'm finding out, no, I did everything I knew how to do. Didn't mean I was always right, but it did mean I was trying. And I find out that if all you're doing is trying in your marriage, you can work anything out in your marriage. The moment somebody gives up, the marriage is over.
Yeah.
And that's what happened. Somebody gave up. So now God's giving me back my identity. And now I'm getting back my manhood. Now I'm getting back my confidence. Now I'm getting back where I belong, my purpose. And now I'm getting my joy back. And with that, I'm ready to go now. I'm ready to go again.
So, man, Nino, where are you in this process?
Yeah, like Joe, for me, I had realized like I lost my identity. I don't think I knew who I really was post divorce. And I didn't realize it until at that moment. I was like, wow, I feel like a lot of what I am or what I do is invested in my marriage. So, I immediately noticed even like my characteristics, I had lost relationships in between that time for sake of like keeping my marriage, and things of that nature. And so it's just like trying to find myself really was what it was. So that came from like my personality, diverting back to who I really was. I felt like I even tried to avoid talking to specific people. I avoided certain, I don't want to say certain humor, but just my natural humorous ways because of, the marriage that I was in. And, it's like initially early on, I put a lot of blame to the issues that she had going on at the time. Right now, as like time has progressed, I realized, well, it connected to that, but the reality is that I had an issue. If I knew that those were things that kept me back from being me, then I should have been speaking about those things, and I wasn't. I was holding my mouth back to avoid confrontations, to avoid conflict. I can say now and be man enough to say, like, you know what, I should have been man enough to come and confront conflict. Come and confront and have a little bit of argument to get to a solution. And that was really the issue. But yeah, I noticed I had, just lost myself really. So once I came to realizing that, I started by first building myself in my relationships, my friendships, and even with family. I had kind of noticed I had distanced myself from people for sake of my marriage. And not to say that those were things that she requested. These were just all things that mentally and internally I thought I needed to do to keep it strong or what have you. So yeah, it's really identifying myself was the thing. Once I came to one, identifying myself, and then two, understanding my value, right? I no longer needed like a opposite gender to give me my value. Myself and what God had placed before me, I was able to receive, and that was completely fine with me. Changed everything. And so with that being said, then I just started kind of striding along with certain passions. And in my case now, I do photography and videography, and it wasn't until realizing, like, man, I really had lost like the direction of art. I love art altogether. And so I started diving myself into like the art end of things, right? From like, video and photography to just all ends of it. And like I said, just rebuilding those relationships.
Man, so marriage is about two people becoming one flesh, right? And so of course you would say that you would lose a part of yourself. You have to refine yourself. because I believe that you were in process of becoming one during the marriage. So when you pull away or when you're no longer in the marriage, you have to figure out and rebuild you a whole you, a whole you. I think a lot of times in marriage, we sacrifice certain things for the sake of comfort, for the sake of the relationship. But one thing that I keep hearing is that you guys have decided to really choose to say, "Hey, this is who I am, and this is okay. This is what I like, and this is okay. These are the things I'm passionate about, and it's okay." And I really want to know what has the journey to I'm good, I'm okay, I'm enough. I those declarations, those mantras that you have used as pathways to get to a place of wholeness. What are some of the things you tell yourself on the daily basis to make sure that you're still moving in the right direction? Tommy.
What's up with Tommy?
Man, for me, it took a lot of like right after my divorce, man. Like everybody's been saying, I had that moment of kind of like just feeling like, man, who am I? What am I? Like, am I a man? This and whatever. And it took a lot of me like doing like a lot of soul searching, a lot of trying to connect to other people, just build a community with people, listening to different speakers and stuff like that. To the point where I started to get, my own mantra. And one of the things that I practiced, I forgot who did it, but it was a lady, and she was like, it was something that she does every night before she goes to bed. She looks in the mirror and she tells herself 5 things that she's proud of that she did that day. 5 things that she wants to forgive herself for doing. And that's kind of what I started doing, looking at myself in the mirror, just speaking to myself like, yo, Tommy, you did this today. This was a great accomplishment. That was good that you did that. You got this done. Tommy, I apologize. Like if it was something, maybe I procrastinated on something, or maybe I didn't fully commit to something that I said I was going to do. I forgave him, talking to myself in the mirror. Tommy, I forgive you for not doing this. Just kind of building that self-confidence within to, just get past feeling that the feeling like I'm not enough, or feeling like there's something wrong with me. Just really speaking to myself as if I'm a whole completely different person. Might sound crazy, but I have to start speaking to myself as if I was somebody trying to inspire somebody else or whatever. And that's what worked for me. Really just daily looking in the mirror, to the point where it's become a habit now. I even do it with my kids. Before they go to school, they will look in the mirror and tell themselves, I'm going to have a good day today. This is what I'm expecting you to do today. Like, it's just become a habit for us just to build that inner man within ourselves.
Wow, that's good. Joe, what does that look like for you?
Well, it was really for me the story of Joseph, right? A lot of times we read the Bible, we're not looking for God, we're looking for us. So I found Joseph and everything he went through and all the pain and suffering that he endured, and it all was meant for a prophetic destination, for a prophetic purpose. And now he becomes the governor of Pharaoh. If one of these things he don't go through, if there's one of these things he doesn't go through, whether it's slavery or incarceration, he does not become the Joseph that saves his whole family from a famine, and he does not become that guy. So for me, I had to embrace what I had went through. I had to accept it and embrace it and say, this made me better. What Nino said about value, I got my value back by understanding that God had purpose in this for me. That I was meant to go through this so that he can now shift me to purpose. It was meant for me to be broken back all the way down in order to go to him, instead of all these insignificant things in our culture that makes us powerful, that makes us a man. I had to go to him for all those things now, because I couldn't find it in myself anymore. I couldn't find it in my wife and my kids anymore. The only person left that I could really say that loved me was God, because I was still here. It's like, I'm still here, so something's right. I'm not destroyed. I'm not dead. Even though I felt like dying, I'm still here. What's going? I had to crawl back to God and find identity, and from there find purpose. Not only purpose in the good, but purpose in the bad. We have to find purpose in the bad. The bad is a part of our story. If we just pretend like, well, I'm the bad never had anything. No, the bad is a part of who I am. So because I have value, I can say, no, we can't be friends because I have value now. I can say, be selected by the people that I'm going to allow into my life, whether they're a blessing or not, because I value me now. Instead of just it being about everybody else and liking me. Does everybody else accept me? That's not good enough anymore. If you're not bringing something in my life that's valuable, we can be cool, but we certainly can't be friends. But that came from my journey. So I'm so grateful for the journey now. And I thank God for purpose.
That's good.
So, one thing, you get me when you start talking about journey. There is a therapist by the name of Joshua Smith, and he was on a show with me once, and he said, Robert, he said, wholeness is the destination, but healing is the journey, and that has become a mantra to me. Is that, and I'm not trying to get churchy here, but I definitely feel healing. I definitely feel healing and restoration. If there's somebody that's watching right now that has gone through divorce, who has been through traumatic experiences, and you've been carrying shame, you've been carrying guilt, you've been carrying the weight of it, I really believe that you're going to leave here free after this. I really believe that you're going to realize that this was not your fault. God has a plan, God has a purpose in all of it. And I'll say this, part of my journey through some of the traumatic experiences I've been through is realizing that God was with me. I think for me, that was the most, and anybody that I've mentored, I'll tell them the greatest revelation of my life is knowing that whatever I walk through, I am not walking alone.
Right.
I am not and it does the world a difference, and it makes you look at the world totally different when you realize, even if you did mess up, because some things you don't do right, and as men,
That's right.
there are some things that we don't get right. But there is joy in knowing that we serve a God who does not leave us even when we do wrong. Who doesn't walk, go ahead, who doesn't walk away even when we mess up. And isn't that the beauty of grace? Isn't that the beauty of mercy? And it's like, you do not deserve this, but he's like, I'm still right here, and everybody else left, everybody else is gone based upon your works, based upon what you do, but that relationship is not based upon that. And as secular or as non-Christian that I want this platform, or I try to make it, there is a spiritual component to being a man that you just cannot ignore, because you are God's expression in the earth. And if anything is broken, if your car is broken, if you have a broken part, sometimes you have to take it back to the creator of that thing so it can be put back together again. And I really believe that and I didn't get on here to preach, y'all.
Hey, you preacher.
I'm not trying to preach to you guys, but I believe, I love God. Oh, this is about to break me.
Speaking tongue.
I serve God. One of my favorite scriptures is, "We are God's workmanship," and I actually got a whole tattoo about this scripture. I don't know if you guys.
You can see it.
It's this arm. It's like a stained glass window. You can't see it. Heart, but it talks about God. We are God's workmanship, and one of the reasons why I love that scripture is because when I hear that word, about being His workmanship, I think of the word masterpiece. I think of a masterpiece, and I love stained glass windows. And regardless if if you go into any church or any place or that has stained glass windows, one thing that you will notice is that it's a whole bunch of fragmented pieces of glass that have broken pieces of glass that have been put together to make a bigger picture. And if anybody ever broke the whole thing, nobody could really restore that image or restore that broken glass besides the person or people who created it. So therefore, you just gonna be jacked up. So one thing I loved about that scripture is that we serve a God who is crazy in love with you and will pick up the broken pieces of your life and will put them intricately back together. He doesn't ask how did it get broken? He doesn't ask whose fault is that? Why did it break? He just goes and he picks up those broken pieces and he puts them back together. I want to talk to a man real quick who life has been shattered, whose hopes have been shattered, whose dreams have been shattered, whose name has been shattered, whose reputation has been shattered. I believe that you're watching live tonight because God is saying to you, I am here to put the broken pieces of your life together again. And he has assembled Tommy. He's assembled Nino. He's assembled Brandon. He's put Joe in our midst to show you that these are pieces of broken glass. These are masterpieces that I have put and I am putting back together again.
So for me, I'll put it in what I would consider like shoe leather.
I might have to take this because
I'm gonna put it in shoe leather right quick. So for me, and I'll say this too, because there's different people on here watching. There's some men on here, and of everybody here, nobody here has said I was the one that cheated. Okay, the odds are that out of everybody here, out of the five of us looking at each other, that one of the five of us has cheated on our wife. Maybe it came out, maybe it didn't. But the truth of the matter is that there's men on the other side that I promise you, they're looking at it right now going, well, I ruined my marriage. Okay. Here's the awesome thing to tie what everybody is saying is that the formula for recovery is the same for the cheater, for the husband, or it doesn't matter either way. Right. Okay. So there's a real popular thing right now in the church world. Know God, find freedom, discover purpose, make a difference. Okay. So, and I'll say this there may be some people watching tonight. You're like, hey, I get what y'all saying, but I don't do the Jesus thing. Okay. If you're an atheist or an agnostic, know God. Understand, first of all, that there is something that is helping to control your life outside of you. Okay. There is something more powerful than you. Number one.
That's right.
Number two, find freedom. How do you find freedom? For me, it was through stability. Maybe it's through a mentor in your life. Maybe it's through a book that you're reading that's helping you. Maybe it's through accountability. Know God, find freedom. One of the biggest things out there is discover purpose. And I'm going to say this for the people that are church hurt. Okay. And I tell people this all the time. I say, hold your thumb up. You got a thumbprint. Yeah. It's different than everybody else you've ever met. The center of your eye, the very center of your eye is built structurally different than anybody else on the face of planet Earth. God cared more about your parents getting together and having sex. He cared less about them having sex, more about who you came out to be. He put those two people together so that thumbprint and the center of that eye would be different than anybody else. He would have never went to that trouble if he didn't have a purpose for you. If he didn't have a purpose, otherwise you'd be dead. You wouldn't be here. So I would hear all of this, right? And I would go to church. And church, I would go and say, hey, look, I'm divorced. Are you divorced? Well, you could be a good saint. And next thing you know, I'm facing judgment from people at church. Okay. And I couldn't figure out how I was supposed to ever activate my purpose. Romans chapter 12, verse 2. Be ye not conformed to the patterns of this world, but ye transformed.
Be transformed by the renewing of your mind.
And I realized all of a sudden it was in my headspace. That's where I had lost my purpose, was in my headspace. So now all of a sudden, I don't need somebody else to affirm my purpose. I need to know, first of all, and I'm going to say this too, whether you were the cheater, whether you're the one that was cheated on, whether you're on a bar stool, whether you're in a pulpit, your purpose does not change. And it took me a long time to figure that one out. Man, because the same purpose, whether you're the cheater or the one that's been cheated on, whether you're on a bar stool or in a pulpit, your purpose does not change. So the purpose that is in your life, the purpose, the goodness, the things that you can do for the eternal portions of life, it does not change. It may be delayed because of what has happened. It may be delayed because of what you have done. But that does not negate the purpose in your life. That doesn't mean now all of a sudden, well, I'm just sucking oxygen. No. If that's the case, you'd be dead. Okay? There is a purpose for your life. And whenever you go to church and you say, well, they ain't helping me. Hey, Romans chapter 12, verse 2, get your mind right. Understand the purpose from God, not from church. Get up, dust yourself off. Because the fourth step of that is make a difference. What does that mean? I'm making a difference not only in my life, in my children's life, but I'm also making a difference in the life of other people. And I'll say this, that's one of the reasons of the I Am Man podcast, is because you understand, you found God, you found freedom from your life and the things that had happened to you, the things that you had done to other people. Next thing, what happened right after that? You understand, hey, I have a purpose, I have a gift, I have a calling. And now what are you doing? You're using that calling to make a difference in somebody else's life. That is the formula, the 4 steps to me to walking out of divorce.
Hey, Rob.
Yo.
Hey, Rob, I got to correct you. My money isn't messed up. So this happened in 2016 while I was going through all that child support, $50,000. 6 months later, we bought our first house with my name on it. I have a $700 credit. I have a 700-point credit score, which was when I first started, it was 620. So I say that to say, hey, glory. I say that to say, God honored, even though the world didn't honor me doing what was right. God honored it.
Yes.
And the Bible says, even if the world is against you, if God be for you, greater than the whole world against you. So, hey, he got my back regardless, and I'm good.
Yo, just to speak on that even more, what that understanding the grace of God, like I can literally remember the exact moment where it was like where the light bulb clicked on, where it was like, okay, I can do this. I was literally in church in the cafe. Church had not started. It wasn't like no deep revelation. But at that moment, I lived like the moment I was deciding to get a divorce. I heard God say, whether you get the divorce or you stay married, you're still my son.
Mm-hmm.
When I heard that, when I felt that, it gave me peace on the inside. Not necessarily like, okay, cool, I'm getting a divorce, but it gave me an understanding that no matter what happens in life, as long as I trust God in those moments, in those situations, he's going to take care of me. There's nothing, like you said, when you understand your purpose, there's nothing that can stop that. There's nothing that can prevent your purpose from happening. And just walking in that, I literally felt prior to that moment, I literally felt like everything that God called me to do was over with. I was no longer going to be able to lead worship. I was no longer going to be able to minister. I was no longer going to be able to teach. I was no longer going to be able to do any of those things. I literally felt like it was over with for me. And it was in that moment where I heard that voice say that no matter what you decide to do, you're still my child.
Mm-hmm.
I gave it all to God. And like since then, and it's not a bragging thing. I mean, I've had my bumps and bruises, but this has been the most blessed I have ever been in my life. This is the most peace I have ever had in my life, even in the midst of the things that have happened outside of, just still dealing with my ex at times when that gets rough, dealing with, my health, just recovering from COVID. I've never experienced this much peace in my life. I've never experienced being this blessed where God is constantly opening doors for me, constantly doing things. And I give all credit to God and every chance that I can get, like, yo, I'm just doing what God tells me to do. I mess up. I might mess up. I might, do something stupid, but I know how to come back, say, yo, God, I did this. I'm sorry. Forgive me. And I just move forward with it.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, when you understand God's grace, it makes everything that much more sweeter.
That's good, man.
Oh, one more thing. I'm sorry. My wife is on me. At the closing, when we bought our house at the closing, remember I told you I had to empty up my account about $7,000? I got that check at the closing. Wow. We didn't pay a check. We got a check for $7,000.
Wow.
So it was just amazing.
That's love. So you guys have proven and are proving that there's definitely life after divorce. And even though, situationships happen. So what does the future look like for you guys now? What is the future, Nino? What does the future look like for you right now?
Well, I think my biggest mistake was not having myself established. I think I learned that after the divorce, was understanding that I didn't even have like a vision for myself. How can I come to the table with no vision? You know what I mean? So it's not to say that I have it all together. But at least have something before me that I know that I'm trying to strive for. And if there is a significant other along the way, then they have an understanding as to where I'm trying to head in that direction. And I say that because I think the biggest mistake that we can do is dive into like a relationship, not understanding like, not to say standards, but certain things you'll tolerate, certain things you won't tolerate, some of the things that you want for yourself, some of the things you don't want for yourself. And I say that because whoever comes before you, it's not to say that if they're not for those things that they're wrong. No, they're just not the person for you. So I want to have a better understanding of what I want for myself and the direction that I'm trying to head before anything else. And so for me specifically, I'm really trying to dive into this photography and videography, and God willing, it continues to expand in the direction that it does.
And let me tell you, this is a shameless plug. Shots by Nino. Nino is one of the best videographers that I have ever seen, that I've ever worked with. So
I'm gonna look you up because that's my hobby too. By the way,
yes.
we gonna spend some time on that. I love it. It's like my passion.
I just want 10%, That's it.
Hey, I gotta throw this out there too, Nino. I know this is off topic here, but I only know one man from Chicago. His name is Tony Suarez, and you look and sound just like him. I just want to throw it out there.
Stop it. You serious?
If y'all don't know evangelist Tony Suarez, y'all gotta go look him up. That man preached the house down.
I'll look him up.
Nino has one of those faces, depending upon what his beard face look like. One day he'll look like he's Middle Eastern. The next day he'll look Puerto Rican.
I think it's the reason why I have a passion for acting, man.
Like he can look like them all. So listen, I'm just humbled that you guys have chosen to be on. I am extremely thankful for your life, and that you guys have proven that there's definitely life after divorce. I'm excited. So listen, I want you guys, please don't be strangers to this podcast. Please don't be strangers to this platform. This is my open invitation to all of you, to Tommy, Nino, Brandon, Joe, that you guys are welcome on the I Am Man podcast. Anytime that you want to come on, be like, yo, Rob, I'm ready. And you guys can come through. I'm excited. On Facebook land, YouTube land, the I Am Man podcast. Show them some mad love. Go find them. Joe. His name of his company is Joe Speaks Hope. So go look him up. Brandon, where's your church at?
Renew Church, north side of Houston, Texas, Conroe, Texas.
Conroe, Texas. No, Nino, where can we find you at?
IG, official Shots by Nino. On Facebook, Shots by Nino.
Good. Tommy, where can we find you at?
You can find me on social media at Tommy Billups. It's TOMMIE. That's Tommy with the IE. And also you can check me out on my website, www.tommyb.com, and just connect.
Cool. Joe, this must be your is this your wife, Gabby Nicole?
It is my wife.
She's a trooper, man.
She's a trooper, man. So listen, you guys, you can also follow me on social media. You guys look me up, Robert Marshall. It's at Dr. Rob Marr Jr. Go to my website, www.roberthmarshall.com. I'm real just interested really quick. Are you guys working on any projects during this quarantine?
I am. I actually got something that I'm releasing this on May 8th. It's a song called Wide Open. And I was actually able to work with a guy remotely. I haven't met this guy in person. We've only interacted via social media, and we were able to complete a whole project, and it's super dope. And it's kind of dealing with this topic of divorce and moving past it and how to love and live afterwards. So it's called Wide Open. It'll be available everywhere May 8th. So check that out.
Sweet.
Good. Well, once again, thank you guys for joining us. Yo, I love you guys, and I wish the best for all of you. All right. Thanks, guys. Everybody, Facebook land, we love you.